Welcome to Pax Europiana, the podcast about peace and prosperity, this time from Mariupol, in a bit of my improvised TV studio here. I'm here very clearly calling for EU, NATO and Euro future of Ukraine, and especially fast to defend Mariupol. I'm here now and you have seen all my videos. Maybe some of you have seen all my videos. I made many of them to show you Mariupol as I saw it, as I see it today. And I called also, I've written an article now, for Mrs. van der Leyen and the Commission President, Mrs. van der Leyen, and the Parliament's President, and Mrs. Roberta Metsola, and also Charles Michel, to come together to Mariupol in a sign of solidarity, to visit the front and to visit this great city, because that's the big prize Putin wants to have. And we have to defend it. Because if he takes Mariupol, he has an important industrial, strategic, logistic access point here. He controls the Azov Sea, and he has, of course, the control of eastern Ukraine, of this outlet to the sea for Dnipro, for this important industrial town of Zaporozhye and Dnipro, and the whole agricultural output for eastern Ukraine. And he has a stranglehold on free Donbass, on the Ukrainian part of Donbass. That would be devastating. And militarily he can do it easily. I looked at the situation, it's very clear. He has the tanks available. He can easily basically encircle the city and take this 500,000 people as hostage. And what we do then? We look very silly, and he will change and upside down turn around the world order again in this brutal decapitation and encirclement, this kind of castle he will produce here. And the people are then the hostage, and even if there are a lot of javelins and stingers, we cannot really then deploy these forces, because he is basically in very densely populated area. He will find his quisling and he will basically take over Mariupol. And that will be this point in the eyes of the West again, in the core of our values, and we will be totally messed up. And the second part of the term of Mrs. van der Leyen will be dominated by a city she probably rarely knew, Mariupol. It's a very important city here for Ukraine. It's the city of Putin's defeat, yeah? Because this city he wanted to take in May, June and summer of 2014, but the people here and the workers of the steel company and the Ukrainian itself, they defended it and they stopped him here. So symbolically it's the city of the defeat of Putin. Now it can be symbolically the turnaround, and the city can be the victory of Putin and the defeat of all Europe. And that would be an absolute drama. Because for that city probably the big war and the big sanctions, that's the question, if the West is then so united. If it just takes the argument of Macron's and all these Finlandizers and all these kind of neutralists, these moral neutralists, they will say, just Mariupol, that was historic, this big Russian, So we will be in a complete mess. And that is exactly the additional pain he will do to us, and together with the annexation of Belarus and of Donbass, the Russian-occupied Donbass, which I also think we can do very little, but complain and sanction. But that will be basically the reality of 2014. But he is not the guy to just do us that favor, in a sense, and let us so easy off the hook. He will take Mariupol as well, if we are not smart enough to block it. And that's why I make these videos. That's why I went to Mariupol, to see this danger very clearly, because that would additionally very big problem for the whole of the Western value community and the whole Western world order, because he would basically show that he can take another part. He can take two pieces, he can take another half, and then he gradually works into Ukraine over the next 2 years. I mean, that's a real danger. And it has to be a red line. Mariupol must be the red line. Mariupol must be defended. And Mrs. van der Leyen, come here. Roberta Metsola, come here to Mariupol. It's easy to go. I'm just a podcaster, economist and activist. I went by train. It was a bit, 14 hours. Over the night in the sleeper car, and I'm back again on Friday in Kiev. So for you guys, so in your private planes from the EU Commission, it's not a problem. And you have also this picture to go to the front, and all this kind of big things. It will be, in a way, good PR, and it's good policy, and maybe it stops Putin. And imagine if he really does it, how many people will die here on the way? Because it's easy to say, yeah, the tanks move and then the city will be encircled and so. That's all easy to say, but how what a kind of human disaster that will be? How many people will die? How many people will be under the tanks? Yeah, when I'm 53, I cannot throw myself in front of a Russian tank. That's not my situation anymore. Was never as neutral. Actually, I'm from neutral Austria, but I'm very much from NATO. And I hope the Austrians will sue me for violation of neutrality law. And I will be the martyr of NATO in Austria. That would be really very good. And it would support my campaign for the Austrian NATO membership, which I pray the press will bring another peace of mind now, and I hope for that. And I want to also to thank the Ukraine Journal. That's very good news of this week, because I've published now 3 pieces which I couldn't publish in Austria. The call for the end of Nord Stream 2, I couldn't, the end of Lukoil board membership and of all the Austrians complicity with Putin, unpublishable in Austria. I couldn't publish that in Austria. I could publish it now in this Ukrainian German-speaking journal. It was really very good. And also I published now the article about Macron, full broadside against Macron. That was good. And about this Finlandization disaster. And I published also, now I will now, I hopefully also publish this call for Mariupol, because Mariupol is really important. 500,000 people, a strategic asset of prime significance. Many Europeans don't know this city, but it really matters very much, and it matters for Europe very much. And please, Mrs. von der Leyen, come here, show your solidarity, be present here. It's not so much time. I say in my letter, you have to stay here 1 month until Putin has certainly not invaded. Maybe that's too much, and you just fly in, fly out. But then fly in, fly out, every day a commissioner, every day a parliamentarian. From now in this critical phase until the 16th of March, every single day there should be 1 parliamentarian, 1 commissioner, 1 high official taking care of the city and saving it from Putin. I think after mid of March, after 16th of March, when he has not invaded and he has not annexed anything, probably he will not do it and just keep the threat level. But you never know, he could do it. And do we want to be fools again, like in 2014? I mean, I thought I really know Europe and I know the situation, but I didn't believe he will do it. It was fresh in my face, yeah. I couldn't believe it is really destroying the Western world order in that kind of flagrant brutality as it did in 2014, and you never know, he might do it again. He's getting old, he might have less to lose, and why not? Yeah, it's possible. Of course, you know, there will be very strict measures if he does the big war, but if he just does the Mariupol operation, just, you know, it's 500,000 people encircled, yeah, in this situation here. And will there be the big American intervention against that? Will there be the big economic shock? You know, that's always then a question of, you have heard Biden when he was already relatively kind of backtracking in some ways. I have no doubt they will, if it's the big war, but for Mariupol and for us in Europe it will be a complete disaster, because our whole post-war, Cold War world order will be turned upside down. It will be economic shock. It will be a big shock for Ukraine, because they can definitely not let that be. Yeah? And then there will be battles here again. And what we have to offer to Putin to stop it, yeah, another pipelines or so. Yeah, in the media I saw already Nord Stream 3, 4, 5, 6. I mean, it has to end here. The buck has to stop here. And now it's relatively easy to, I think so, it's actually not so complicated for the Europeans. And that's why I make these videos, yeah. Come here, show that you really care, show the price will be high, show that there will be no division. That was the damaging and devastating effect of Emmanuel Macron's visit there, because he is then dancing to Putin's pipe, and he is talking his lines of finalization, neutrality, no buffer state, and all these things like no EU future, no NATO future, no nothing for Ukraine, and no unity. Because I repeat all the time, neutrality even could be theoretically an option in exchange for unity. Russia withdrew from Austria in 1955. That was the price for neutrality. I call it a dirty deal, but it was unity real. Vienna was free again. Eastern Austria was free again. the Russian troops really went. Yeah? So that was, okay, I can understand Raab and Fiegel, why they did it. Yeah? Even when in the context of the whole Western European defense it was treasonable. Now I understand as well very much, yeah? Because of course Germany much more important and higher stakes, and it was not possible that way. And the Soviets wanted it. Yeah? But today Putin has never offered to unity for Ukraine, for neutrality. He is not the offer. He just neutralized the existing Ukraine without the two regions and at his conditions. That's submission. That's Finlandization. That was basically Kekkonen, a KGB agent under the Khrushchev, and basically very submissive to the Soviets. Yeah? That I think no Ukrainian president can ever accept, obviously, because he would not be a very long president, because this is a democracy here and it's not the will of the people. They want to be part of the West, and they have shown it on several occasions. Always when they were not manipulated against then to somehow under Yanukovych. Even Yanukovych was in favor of Europe. Let's not forget that facts here in this podcast. Anyhow, I call for really more care from Mrs. van der Leyen. She cannot be missing in action and just thinking it's NATO. No, this is EU. And by the way, we are the same. We are the same American-led organizations. After the end of the Second World War, America created NATO and the EU in order to somehow do something with American liberated and also military occupied Western Europe in the onslaught of the Soviet juggernaut. And so the two organizations were created as a defense alliance and as a copy of the United States. And this is exactly the foundation of both organizations. And the anti-Americans in Europe hate it for that. And I love it for that, because it's freedom, it's property rights, it's human rights, it's the defense from the Soviet ideology. And it's, of course, the Europe we love and we care. And the Ukrainians want to be part of it. And I cannot understand that Russian paid agents, former politicians, Schröder, Schüssel, and Leitl, and all Fischer, and all of them, in the Russian pay. And they dominate our politics to this moment. Left-wing agitators or whatever, center-right, Catholic, whatever kind of reason they have for the anti-American hatred, they use that and they then take Russian money and then they make this kind of campaigns against Ukraine. That's the reality. I mentioned it in my articles now. It's mostly in German language because my anti-Russian establishment in Austria statements, it's more for the Austrian public, yeah. But I can tell it here on my podcast as well. I know very well how that works in Austria. I'm more or less an insider. And I talk very openly and I criticize it because Russia buys influence now since whatever, the end of the Second World War. And they threaten, and it's a mix of threats and of buying and of enforcing and coercion. It's a variation of methods, but they are very powerful in Austria and in Finland and everywhere where the establishment is letting them inside and inroad, and then it's like cancer in a way politically. And of course they manipulate then the reality via the media and they pay the parties and the politicians and the think tanks, and then suddenly we have a situation like it is like that. America, always the problem is always when America is absent, Russia moves into the vacuum. That was under Obama, very striking. And now America is much more back, but of course the damage is already done, and Russia is very active in our political systems, in buying the politicians, the think tanks, the parties, funding them. And then obviously they make, it's not actually, there's the tragedy, it's not that there's this Russian money, it's our energy consumers buying Russian energy and via kickbacks of that, and the profits of that business is then recycled in the political system of Austria, Germany, Italy, Hungary, and many other European countries. So we have to be really smarter and end this energy dependency, build a transatlantic energy market, as I say, since 25 years, and get going and be somehow reasonable. But we are not. And that's very annoying. Anyhow, we are now in these 6 weeks of crisis, we really have to make sure, and that I say here from Mariupol with all my videos and my efforts, we have to make sure that we pass this crisis and that Ukraine will not lose any more territory in the next 6 weeks, and that when the annexation crisis comes in Belarus and in the Donbass, and it will come, that we then are ready and also invite fast-track the NATO and EU future of free Ukraine as an answer, and make sure where the lines are, clarity in the borders. That is very important. This one is for us, that is for you. In a way, it's a division of Ukraine. It's as brutal as that, and this is the reality, and we have to live with it for some decades. It's painful, but I think it's the way to somehow avoid war and avoid further territorial losses and live with that tragic reality for some decades until the fall of Putin, and one day he will fall. And then will be the moment of unity, like it was for Germany again. There will be the unity of Ukraine once, and Crimea will be back, Donbass will be back, and they will all join NATO and EU in that future. It will take 20 years, maybe 40 years. It took 40 years for the Eastern Germans to come back, and also for Austria and Sweden and Finland to be allowed in the EU, because it was only possible once the Soviet Union was destroyed and finished. Then they were weak and they could no longer stop us to join the European Union, because for 40 long years we were not in the EU. I as Austrian know that very well, because of the Soviet Union. Because they said no, and we were obeying their wishes for 40 years as the contractor of the guarantee of the state treaty. And only when the Soviet Union fell and Alois Mock was so smart to outmaneuver the Russians at that moment when it broke up, and they didn't, in the succession rights struggle, he didn't include the state treaty. He insisted on that. The Russians were in the civil war situation, and so in March 92 or 3, I'm not really 100% sure now, he got this succession treaty, and the Russian Federation is no longer the successor of the Austrian state treaty rights, and is not a guarantee power. And that's why I call so often America, France, UK, release us out of this treaty of submission and then let us join NATO. We Austrians have a right for that one as well. And that would be much easier. Kosovo, Bosnia, Georgia, Ukraine, all in. Georgia and Ukraine, and also hopefully Moldova, on the level like the BRD, like the Western Germany, without the occupied territories, but always with the option that they can rejoin if they want one day. And they will want, because this will be very prosperous, secure and wonderful future for the people of Crimea and Donbass, Abkhazia and Ossetia, because they will be then in NATO, EU and the Euro and very rich, and Russia will decline in for certainty, because it's an empire built on force, brutality, on KGB philosophy, and it will not last. That is for sure. But now we have to make sure this next 6 weeks in 2022 will not result in any further territorial losses of Ukraine, and in no further war of aggression. And that is very important. Good. For peace. Thanks a lot for listening. More to come from Pax Europiana, this time from Mariupol, European Mariupol. Support it as much as you can, please. It's a wonderful town with wonderful people. Please support Mariupol. At least come here, Mrs. von der Leyen, please. Bye. Thank you.